Welcome, welcome to this edition of Soul of Business. I am your host, Erica Edwards, here on Business Takeout. And today we have the pleasure of having Susan Harris join us from diverse financial groups. And Susan is actually my personal bookkeeper. Welcome, Susan.
Hello. Good night, everybody. How are you? Erica, how are you doing?
I am wonderful. I'm so glad that you could come and be with us today. So let me give you just a little bit of background. I will let Susan introduce herself, but she is one of the powerful connections I have made via social media. That is why I'm such a big proponent for it. You can connect with amazing people. So as someone fairly new to Toronto, I got here and I wanted to get out of a really bad pattern of where I was getting my taxes done. Working in that idea of having an abundance mindset, not in a needing mindset. So also wanting to give money to my community, keep my business within my community. Through some of my ladies groups here, my local ladies groups, I encountered Susan and I gave it a whirl. Susan has actually become an amazing ally, one of my cheerleaders. She keeps my taxes straight. She does not let me do silly things. So that's one of the things I love when I hire a professional and then they start telling me no about certain in that area of my life that you cannot do. So I so appreciate that. But really, it's Susan's passion, her passion for her community, her passion to help the everyday, the average person get forward and get ahead. And as we know, who are our entrepreneurs? It is the average person, the everyday, the mom, the single mom, the married couple. Those are our entrepreneurs. Those are our small business owners. And Susan Harris here in Durham, Toronto, GTA is one of the champions for those people. So Susan, before we started, I wanted to tell you, thank you for sorting out the last 3 years of my tax life. Thank you for keeping me straight and not letting me go astray, and the honesty and the integrity with which you work. I am so grateful to be one of your clients. Thank you so much for all you've done for me. So thank you.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
So
Good night.
Go ahead. Tell us how you started, who you are. Go for it. Are you frozen? I think she's frozen.
I'm here.
Yeah, there we are. Okay.
So, your average girl grew up in government housing, parents who worked and did what they had to do for us, like my siblings and I. And, they just had goals and plans and they didn't stop until we made it out of there. So that's where it begins, a long lineage of hardworking aunts, uncles that just kept going, didn't stop. And that's what they showed us. That's what they taught us, that you just have to keep going. And when you hit that rock bottom, you got to figure another way. If it didn't work the first way, you keep going and you try again until you make it the next way. And that's just what I'm built on. So, what am I? I am a girl who studied accounting, have had many industry jobs, all in the accounting field. Finally landed that government job that everybody wants, and I wasn't satisfied. The government does a really good job of providing a lot of additional courses for you to take, and I did them. I didn't do them all, but I did what I could, and I realized I just still wasn't enough. So here we are, up against the wall. I had a decision to make, so I quit my government job, started working full-time as a bookkeeper. Here we are 6 years later.
So this was 6 years ago.
This was 6 years ago. And,
wow.
The basis of everything is really, I love income tax. People think it's crazy. I just love it. I love bookkeeping. I love what I do. They say you shouldn't do something if you're not willing to do it for free. I do that too. So I'm part of different community organizations, part of CRA. CRA has a volunteer section. I'm a host clinic for that, have been for the last 11 years, and I love it.
That is amazing. So the passion is there. You have the passion, and you started this out, like you said, most people, the government job is the pinnacle of career success. If you're in a certain field and you can work for the government, you've made it, you're good. But you got there and you weren't satisfied. And so you decide to work for yourself 6 years ago. So that's 2014, correct?
Yes. I've actually been doing income tax since high school. I just kind of stayed in the background, never really pushed myself. That fear of just not making it, right? or that fear of just trying, or what happens on the other side when you actually get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of stayed in the backgrounds, and then one day it's like, okay, enough's enough.
And you went for it full time.
Full time.
You were doing bookkeeping, accounting within the government, and you decided to do it. So you've always been doing people's personal taxes for years. You've been doing that for years. You actually enjoy it, which, for all of those who are really frustrated with income tax, and maybe your accountant, I think that Susan just made like the best sales pitch in the world. I love income tax. When somebody loves what they do it differently. So I think if you're looking for a bookkeeper, you might have just found one. She just said it. I love doing income tax. But you start this business. So as one, sold a business, we're here to teach, right? So you are 6 years in, you've been doing this for a while, and not only as a full-time business, but on the side, and then you help other people with their businesses. And one of the things I love about you, Susan, is you're a real straight talker. You give it as it is. You tell the truth. You tell it straight. So obviously you have what you did to start up, and then all the knowledge you've accumulated watching small business owners and people with their part-time gigs come to you and show you what to do. So what I'd like from you is, maybe there's not one, but if you could go back, talk to Susan in 2017, 2014, there she is, all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. She's going to start this diversified financial group, and she's ready. And what would 2020 Susan tell 2014 Susan? What would be your advice to her as she's going to start out?
Firstly, definitely to stick to what you enjoy. Be organized from the start, because it's really hard once business starts picking up and everything's going, and now you've got to go back and kind of organize yourself from the beginning. It's like the hamster on the wheel syndrome, right? Once you're not organized and business is up and running, you're not ready. And it's a snowball effect of just chaos. So my 2020 self would say, get organized and also stick to what you love.
And to stick to what you love. And obviously the advice for accounting professional and, another industry could be different or could be the same, but I think this applies across the board. Stick to what you love, really put your energy into something you truly enjoy, because it doesn't seem like work. And then the bad days when it does, at least you're not suffering all the time.
It's not so bad, yeah.
And organize yourself from the start. And in terms of organizing, are you talking about well, obviously as a bookkeeper, I'm sure almost everything to you is a bookkeeping system that needs to be implemented. But are you talking about paperwork? Are you talking about software? When you say organized, are you talking about books specifically?
So I'm talking about your actual paperwork. So I'll show you. So the best thing for you to do when you get started, dollar store, buy yourself an organizer, right? Take the time, label it, get yourself basic organized. At least if you don't know what the categories are, at least shove them in here. That way, when you're looking for something, you can find it. Whoever your tax person is, they can find it, and you're not scrambling and scratching your head like, oh, I don't know what to do. Can I claim that? Oh, your tax professional cannot claim something that you don't have in this envelope. If you don't have it, it's not happening. That's how I work.
Okay.
So I would say start with an organizer. Let's say you're already operating, and you're not organized yet. If you come in with bags like this, you leave the next tax season ready with one of these ready to go. Right. So next year, you don't have to think about it. What am I going to do?
I feel very called out right now.
No, it's not personal.
I feel very called out because the last time I left Susan's office, I left with one of those as a gift. Like I guess she goes to the dollar store and she buys tons of them and she gives her clients and she says, next year when you come back, please come back with this. Yeah. Don't come back with that pile thing, the paperclip thing. Don't do that. So as you said, you cannot claim what you do not present. And that's the other big up I really wanted to give to Susan. Okay, anybody in the Caribbean community understands what I'm about to say. That old guy at church who does everybody's taxes I will make sure that you get, the most amount that you could get and claim all your kids and your cousins and whatnot. But you know what? When the CRA swings back around to ask you questions about what this means, he is not going to stand beside you.
Yes.
And that is why you need someone who operates in integrity, absolutely get you every dime, quarter, nickel you could get, but within the constraints of the law, where you won't have to pay them back later. And literally, an accountant needs to be accountable. So 1 year when the CRA sent me a notice and they were like, oh, we need that. I just was like, Susan, look what happened. And she's like, okay, no problem. And that I quite honestly, I never thought of it again. I gave it to my bookkeeper and that was it. So make sure that as you're setting yourself up and you're getting organized, as Susan said, you're also dealing with very credible professionals that are dealing with your finances. That's super important.
At the very least, no tax professional expects you to know and understand what they're doing, right? But at the very least, you should know what's in your taxes. You should know what's in your envelope. You should know what's going on. There should be no reason that years later, CRA should come to you and say, oh, I need the receipt for that $10,000 donation. And you're like, what? No, you should know what's going on.
Right. You should know what. And I can tell by your face, you've already seen that where somebody looks at you and says, what? So your advice to Susan and your advice to us all is stick to what you enjoy and be organized from the very start. Are there any things that you did on this journey that, I love the very Zen response of, all of our mistakes bring us to where we are. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't do that. And that's wonderful, but I'm sure there's things we would skip. Are there any things you did in building to this point in 6 years deep on your own, that if you could go back, you would have skipped it? What can you help us skip?
Down talking yourself, being fearful of just not making it. And that fear really does stunt most of us, right? You just don't know if you don't try. And if you try, sometimes some people get into certain career paths that it's just not for them. And it's okay to walk away from some things as long as you can recognize where you're supposed to be or what that passion is and just keep going. But fear is really a big problem for us.
Okay, so don't down talk yourself. And in dealing with a lot of small business owners, a lot of people with a side hustle, and it's just so interesting how 20 years ago, the entrepreneur was the crazy person. Like that was literally that kind of lunatic that everybody looked at and was like, you just need to get a government job or work for the TTC, but stop with all of this.
Kind of
right? Yeah. But now, with the world of turning upside down, people are starting to look more and more towards that as the way, sometimes for them, the only way. What advice could you give? You're seeing so many people in so many different industries. You and I have discussed, some interesting ones, diverse ones. You're seeing all sorts of people from all walks of life. What advice would you give to these budding entrepreneurs? Because I know, Susan, you had said one of your passions is the young entrepreneur, the youth. So as they're coming out there and their bright ideas are being sparked, what's some of the advice that you give to them in starting up?
I think I would just start with just basically telling them to just focus on what they're doing. If music is what you love, then focus on that. If architecture is what you love, then focus on that. And don't let anybody sway you off of it. If that's what you want, you can't go to school for some parents won't like this, but you can't go to school for your parents. You have to go to school for yourself. Recently a young girl came in here, 22, 23. She finished her bachelor's in university, not in a program of her choosing, $15,000 of student loans. And she's doing the complete opposite right now, only because she went because her mom wanted her to. And she hated it the whole time. So I would just say, stick to what you want to do because you'll enjoy it more. It'll be more fulfilling. Even if you have $15,000 a student, that it's well worth it, right? And carry on.
So really, that is something that I'm hearing again and again from you is do what you enjoy. That's really where you're going to be successful is do what you enjoy. And for you, you were fortunate in that what you were enjoying as your regular job ends up being your personal business at this point. But what about those people who have, they got their government job, they work for the TTC, and they got to pay that mortgage, and they're starting out on the side? A lot of people have their after their 9 to 5, they've got their 5 to 9. How have you seen people launch that? It's kind of like when you drive standard and you got to get between the gas and the what is that? The clutch just right, and get going. So how do you go from being dependent on that every 2-week check to taking that leap of entrepreneurship?
You have to assess your family situation. Some people are in jobs that have private pensions. Once you leave, you have access to some of that money. So you just got to assess where your family is at. If one spouse can carry the load and you can start, then, of course, and it works for your house, it works for you. If not, and you have no choice and you have to start on the side and, work. Your way is different from my way. So you just got to find what works for you. And then there's other businesses that you don't need much finances to start. Start with where you're at. Earlier you talked about accounting software. You don't need accounting software. Excel works, right? Most people have Excel on their laptop. Create a little chart for yourself. If you don't know how to create a chart, just plunk the numbers in there and then your tax person will figure it out. But the point is to just start somewhere.
I like that. Start somewhere. You don't need to get fancy. You don't need subscriptions and QuickBooks and go to the dollar store. I mean, even if you're writing it down neatly in columns, start to be organized from the beginning and go forward from there. And
this is $4.
$4, guys, $4, and it's the beginning of your setup. And years from now, when you talk about your multi-million-dollar systems, you'll remember your $4 folder, or maybe to keep those millions, you'll keep your $4 folder. Right?
Keep the $4 system. Yeah.
Yes, go Susan. Absolutely. You're getting some cheers on. One of the things, Susan, when we were talking before this, you said, that you're passionate about. And me, I love when people talk about their passion because it actually makes my job really easy. I don't have to do anything. I just ask people, tell me what you love and I can leave. And you started, you were like, I love the youth. The youth are my passion. Young entrepreneurs. And even hearing you speak about, going to school and what you're choosing when you go to school. And I guess this would be the soul part of our soul of business, because every entrepreneur, no matter what their field, they have something that means a lot to them personally. And whether it affects their business directly or just their personal life, it is a huge part of the drive of their success. And you said youth is your thing. That's what you're passionate about. Do you want to expand on that a bit more, Susan?
Okay. So, over the years of all the youth growing up, majority of the time, our parents are just not available to help us because they have to work. And there's so many different ideas that people have that are great ideas, and they kind of just get lost because there's just no time to focus on it or devote to your children because you're working. So why I like the youth is because when they come in and we have a little chat, I can kind of gauge where they're going or not going just in that initial conversation. And we have a real talk about it. If they're young families and I kind of see maybe they're making some not so nice choices, we have a talk about it. If I see a young father who comes in, multiple children, our conversation is going to be about, do you have life insurance? Like, you need to set yourself up. So these are conversations that we have when they come in, how to help them go along. Sometimes they'll ask questions. Something that I always recommend to them is just have a notebook. Buy a notebook. It doesn't need to be fancy. Write your notes down, keep a journal. That way you always have to be able to go back to your notes. I do find one thing, though. A lot of people say they have lots of notebooks, and I never understand why. Why not just have one for the year And when it's full, it's full.
It's because they have pretty pictures on them, and you always feel like this could be I'm guilty of that. I actually have banned myself from buying notebooks. I have more than enough. And like you said, fill that up, because then you become scattered again. Literally,
Yeah.
your ideas become scattered through all those different notebooks. So I agree with you there. Get a notebook. Susan, that was really big. Life insurance for young fathers of multiple children.
Yes.
That is, I mean, even
We have real talks in here.
Writing it down, I was like, that's not really a sentence that we put together a lot in our community. And that's a reality where you have some young men that do have, multiple children, and often at a close age. And you now are saying, don't just worry about this bonus and that bonus and which one. What about your life insurance? And have you seen personally a shift in the trajectory of a young person, like from where they were when they came to you to where they ended up going?
Yes. I have one young couple right now. They've got, I think, a 3-year-old. When they came, he was only 1. And a lot of things has changed in their life since I've met them. And not because like I went on them or, told them exactly what to do, but, we talked about some things and it opened their mind to some other things, which made them as a couple go home and talk about some stuff. And you can, in their particular case, you can actually see their growth. It's good. So, it feels good.
It must feel good to be able to help guide another generation to see like that 1-year-old that's now 3, when he's 15, that his financial backing will be very different than what it would have looked like, a year ago. And, these are kind of community specific conversations. And I love the fact that you don't shy away from that. You are very, very, very pro your community. And I absolutely love that about you. And in dealing with single parents and what they have now, when you're operating from a place where you feel like you don't have enough and there's just not enough and you're scrambling, is there any advice you can give to kind of to help shift your mindset as you try to transform your thinking?
Yes. So we'll stick, even though life insurance is not my industry, it's kind of a part of my whole mix, right? So when I'm finished with your taxes, I can see how your life is set up. But one of the main things, I guess, the misconceptions of insurance then is people just think we can't afford it. But we actually can if we do make some changes. For example, some credit card statements, you're paying insurance on the credit card. But if you use that same money to pay that credit card insurance, you could buy basic life insurance, which covers a whole lot more than just your credit card. Right. So sometimes it's just little things that we can tweak. Again, children's insurance is not expensive. Excuse me, I tell clients to take it out the day after they get their child tax so they don't have to think about it again. It's gone, but everybody's protected. So it's just little changes that you can make in your budget. Look and see what changes you can make and just make it work.
Children insurance. You mean life insurance on a child?
Yeah.
And do you find that there's a cultural kind of taboo about that? Do you find that people are really resistant to the idea of life insurance on their child?
Absolutely. I'm sure there's some people on this call right now that are advisors and would love to chime in, because it happens every day. People think that, nothing's going to happen to me and, I've got time. But yet you see all these GoFundMe accounts. Get yourself set up. It's that simple. Get your family set up. And I'm not plugging to any specific agents, but really, like, this is just a part of our life. Things happen, and just protect yourself.
If people were to reach out to you, for advice on where to go for something like that, because what's interesting for those who are watching this now, please pay attention. Susan is a bookkeeper. Her thing is taxes, and she's here saying, I'm asking her for advice. This is soul of business. This is where the doers come to teach. And she's paying it forward in advice with literally like decades of accounting experience, but then being in her own business for 6 years. And one of the things she keeps talking about is life insurance. So if that doesn't tell you the sincerity of her heart and where she's going with this and trying to protect her clients, nothing else will. She's not even pitching her own service right now. And so if you were to reach out to Susan, which she will tell you at the end of the show how to get hold of her, how to get in contact with her, she could also to help guide you in which direction to go for something like this. And again, Susan, that's why you are such tremendous value to your clients and to your community. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Life insurance is a really big deal. And I know parents, especially, we get very sensitive of the idea of insuring our child's life, like almost like you're, what would they say? You're wishing it on the kid, that something's going to happen to the kid. But like you said, tragedies happen all the time.
Another reason why I stress life insurance too, especially for the entrepreneurs, it's like if something happens to you, and your business is actually making money and functioning and running, but so at least, it'll cover you and back you to make sure that you're able to heal, but your business is still functioning and it's okay.
Susan,
it's not just life insurance, it's business too.
Can you repeat that little part because you glitched out? So you said, as an entrepreneur having life insurance, could you start that part over, please?
Oh, okay. So you as an entrepreneur, you can buy special insurance to cover yourself in the event something happens to you. And that's important because especially for the people whose businesses are actually flourishing and are completely dependent on them, if they get sick and they have to stay home, then what? Their business crumbles. But if they're protected, at least they have coverage to pay their bills while they stay home and recover.
Okay, so there's so much more to life insurance than just you're dead. Because, I think that's how people look at it. Once I'm, if something completely happens to me and I'm gone, there's protection. But you're saying, as entrepreneurs, and you are that sole breadwinner, your company's completely dependent on you. There's other insurance like health insurance, sickness coverage, and so forth that is important. So these are all the things that really keep you going in times like this. So I think we're all really, really sick of COVID in all kinds of different ways, in all the ways. But for you as a bookkeeper in accountancy, this has had to be huge for your industry, huge for what you do. What are the changes you saw in the last, we're 9 months in? And what do you see for entrepreneurs in the community you serve going forward into 2021? Because it doesn't look like it's really easing up the way we thought it would. What have been the changes, Susan?
Well, of course, like everyone else, we're all zoomed out, Zoom calls like crazy. Because income tax is such a trust industry, it's all trust. It has been a little bit difficult now getting people to maybe want to give their information over the phone or by email. A lot of people, even over the pandemic, still wanted to just come in and drop documents off because they would rather do that. And, you had to be open to those changes. I've heard other bookkeepers only did Zoom calls where they could verify the ID because they didn't want anyone coming in the office. But I didn't want to shut that off from anyone who still wanted to come in. So we just opened up the options for everybody to submit their documents as they needed and could. And what they couldn't bring in, we retrieved from CRA. So it has been a weird shift of trust and just a lot of fear of people and, the handling of the documents. You had to receive a document today, but hold it for 10 days before you could touch it again. So, wow. Yeah, because it would live on the paper for 10 days. So you just had to adjust to what was happening.
And so do you feel though there's been like a general adjustment? Because like you said, you have the older generation that's having to get used to using computers, using Zoom calls, not being able to go in with their envelope, with their elastics. And do you feel that people are, I know, do you feel that people are adjusting? Do you feel that, especially the school, do you feel that they're kind of getting it? Because I feel that this may be the new normal in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of things we're simply just not going back to, whether they get the virus or don't. Do you feel that people are adjusting accordingly, or do you think that there are going to be some that are left behind?
Oh, there's absolutely a lot that are going to be left behind, but I do think a lot of people have adjusted. You know, a lot more seniors are going online. For example, seniors are going online and they are figuring it out. My own parents are figuring it out. My father by himself was never really an internet computer person outside of work. You know, now he's had to figure it out. Rogers, for example, they're doing only online billing. I'm not really sure why, but they're forcing people to go online and create an account. So yes, some people are gonna force through and just figure it out, and then there's others that are gonna get left behind. But now those ones that get left behind, it's up to us to make sure that our family who is left behind is still caught up. You know, check on them. Have you done your taxes? You know, have you gotten your property tax? Like, you know, just making sure that they have the stuff that they need, basics, right?
Okay, so it's a community thing for those who have that family, check in on them. And, you know, I see that you yourself, you have, you know, your causes and different people you'll check up and check in on in that way. So it comes to the part of the night, Susan, where Erica, the student, does a little summary of what Susan, the teacher, has taught. And you get to tell me if I get it right or if I've got, you know, if there's any major points that I've missed. But I'm going to go and tell you what I learned today and what I took from everything that you told me. So here I go. Stop me if I'm wrong. Let me know where I get it. Okay. So for you, the place where you learned the idea of getting forward in accountancy and making plans was from watching your family. You learned by watching. It was through watching your aunties and your parents take a little and grow it and make a lot. Starting with a government job that you love the job, but you weren't satisfied. And that brought you to starting your own bookkeeping company. You absolutely love what you do, and that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you motivated. And that was your first really big piece of advice to us, is do something you love. Do something you do for free. Like, even if no one paid you, you would do it with your spare time. That's what you need to do to open your business. That was number one, right? And through that, you talked a little bit about volunteering. As you still have a business, you work doing this full time, you still volunteer in different places, doing this in different ways for different people. That's how big your passion is. Stick to what you enjoy, right back to do what you love. Be organized from day one. Day one, get your $4 folder. Forget the envelopes. Anything that you think you may be able to claim at some point, maybe perhaps put it in there, because they can't claim what you had thought maybe perhaps on some day last year. So put out your accountant, your tax professional. It's their job to figure it out, but it's your job to make sure you capture all the information. So $4 could set you up. You don't need QuickBooks. Do not down talk yourself. That would be Susan's biggest don't of her whole 6 years on her own and prior to that. Not telling yourself you can't do it. Actually being your own cheerleader, because there's so much stuff we talk ourselves out of, and then you watch someone with less do more, and it's quite a bruise to the ego and the wallet. It is okay to walk away from things you don't like. It is okay to walk away from things you don't love to do. It's really, really okay. Switch the energy to something that you like. It'll probably be better. Focus on what you love. If it's music, if it's architecture, whatever it is you love to do, don't divert your focus. Laser in on that and go with what you love. For the youth, for the young people who are passionate to Susan, go to school for yourself. Now, I know sometimes your parents pay for the school, so that makes it a little bit of a tough ride, but go to school for yourself, because when everything is said and done, it's you living your life. And if you hate what you studied, you're going to hate your day to day. And that makes for a really, really rough life. To wish your way through 8 hours a day, 5 days a week is not living. You can't pack a whole life into a weekend. So really go to school for yourself. Something she said that wasn't part of our general advice, but I'm going to repeat it. I think I need to do a whole show on it. Life insurance for young parents. life insurance for parents who are not couples, life insurance for parents who have multiple children. Really, really important. If you can put a little drop in a bucket that really could become the river for your children, that's where you start, is life insurance. And life insurance for your children, it makes some of us feel icky and weird, and we don't want to do this. But as Susan said, what do we see day in, day out? Are GoFundMes for people who weren't prepared for tragedies, because that's the joke of tragedies. They don't let you get prepared. They just happen. How'd I do?
You did great.
I did good. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I do want to just add 3 easy, quick things that a lot of people don't know about taxes. Okay. Basics. So the topic here is the importance of always having your taxes up to date. Number 1 being, if you pass away and your taxes are not up to date, your family cannot get CRA to close your file, meaning they'll have to spend all of this money and all of this focus when they should be grieving to get your files up to date. Number 1. Number 2 is it causes the obvious financial strain. If you are already a family that didn't have the money to bury you, they've now got to find it to get all your taxes up to date, which just messes things up again. So instead of them being able to grieve, they got to go back to work so they can pay for your taxes. And then number 3 is, by you not being caught up, how do you plan for the future? How do you sit with your advisor, you go to the bank, you even, some people do their own self-finance check. But how do you plan if you're not even up to date to see what you've made for that year or 2 years ago? You have no way to really plan for the future, because the reality is we're in a credit-based society. If things are not up to date, nothing works, nothing functions. And then you're stuck again like a hamster on a wheel, getting everything caught up. You may have moved 6 times. You don't know where documents are. So it's always important to keep your taxes up to date. That way your family can grieve in peace if something happens to you. That way you're not putting any extra financial strain, and then you can plan properly. Those are my tips.
Wow. Well, Susan left the biggest bomb for the end. She sprinkled little gems all through the show. And then at the end, she's like, yeah, so if you die and your taxes aren't up to date, your family's in quite the bind. Yeah. That's crazy. I had no idea. That's completely new information to me. And like you said, at a time where emotions are running so high, people are scrambling and grieving, the last thing you want your family to have to do at that time is to have to figure out your money from 3 years ago that they don't know, and they don't know where their papers are. And I'll throw in, even though this is not my profession, I'll throw something in too. Let people know where your papers are.
Yes.
Don't turn it into a treasure hunt, because once you're no longer here, where do they look? So do let someone know where to look for your stuff. We don't like to think about our mortality, but it's the only thing we are absolutely guaranteed, and it's the only experience every single one of us absolutely share. It's guaranteed. So we have to be realistic and prepare for it.
Yes.
Susan, thank you so much for coming in, chiming in with that. I think that last little piece that you dropped really is going to send some people moving and scrambling, as they don't want their loved ones to face undue hardships after the fact. And thank you for all of that. And so now, if we want to get into contact with you, if we have those envelopes with the elastics around them, or the paper clips, where do we go? How do we get in contact with you so we can get a nice file folder and get our lives together?
So on Facebook, I'm Diverse Financial Group. Email is diversefinancialgrp@gmail. And website is diversefinancialgroup.ca.
There we go. And I can personally recommend Susan. She's really helped me get on track. And trust me, I was very far off track, and I still have a way to go. But the honesty, the integrity, the tough love, Like I said, she is my Ailana of taxes. She gets it done. She tells me straight and actually gives me hope. So it's pretty cool when somebody's talking to you straight, but you still feel hopeful. So Susan, thank you for all that you do for me personally and for the community at large. Keep inspiring. Keep going on. There were a lot of comments that popped up where people were recommending you because you are indeed awesome. Thank you so much. And I look forward. I'll be seeing you soon. I was actually just going through my envelope. I'm like, it's year end and I want to be on this. No more April stuff. I want to be like ready in January. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this year brings and how.
Can I just touch on two more things? Sorry, quickly.
Absolutely.
So, because of Corona, you've heard all the different posts from CRA talking about this disability tax credit.
Mm-hmm.
A disability tax credit has to be approved by CRA that affects your daily living with an ailment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what they've been doing is they've opened up applications till the end of December. So for anybody who either needs one for themselves or knows someone who should have one or possibility of having one, now's the time to talk to your tax person, get those forms, get your doctor to fill it out. CRA is still accepting them till the end of the month. So that's one. The second one is, even though we're in this pandemic time and we have to stay away from different people, I encourage everyone to, especially the ones who have elderly parents whose paperwork may be not so organized, now's the time to really sit and go through it while things are quiet. You have a little bit more time. Make sure that you have your power of attorneys in check. That make sure everything, all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, and just make sure that, like you said, you know where your documents are, because it's just so much more stressful to have to deal with it once they're gone and you don't know what things are. So I encourage everyone to check in on those families, those elderly, help them get their paperwork together, and have a nice Christmas.
Oh, thank you so much, Susan. See, I'm telling you, this lady is, I think I have to figure out a way to get like some kind of monthly advice from you or like the gems of the month so that people can stay on track, because there are a lot of changes right now here in Canada and the United States. We keep mentioning the CRA. That's our version of the IRS.
Yep.
But all the advice she told you applies except for the very specific Canadian programs. Everything else applies to our American viewers, to our viewers across the pond. Absolutely. These things are specific. So just replace CRA with IRS. They will come for you. Make sure you send in your paperwork. They will come. They know exactly where you are, and it's just not worth it. And there are a lot of benefits. There's so many benefits that people kind of dupe themselves out of because their stuff's not up to date. And I've heard it, I've seen it, Susan, where people didn't do their taxes for a year and it's like, they've owed you money. They're like, really? It's like, yeah, well, if you had checked, you would know. So definitely. Well, Susan, thank you so much for all of your wonderful advice. And I look forward to, this is the most I'm going to see you, the whole face thing, because the next time
you can't come see me, you know where I'm at. Come to the office.
Yeah, then it's going to be like half face. All we're going to see is each other's eyes. So it's wonderful to see your smile today. I guess this is as important in person as our smiles will be for a minute, but I will be seeing you soon with my nice organizer and going forward into 2021 with the greatest financial aspirations and hopes. And I put that out there for all of our viewers. May 2020 have given you, I know it was hard. I know there were a lot of things that we weren't expecting, but I hope it puts you on track to a better financial way. Even if this time gave you a lot of hardships, maybe it's made you look at things differently and you're switching paths. And I'm wishing us all an amazing, prosperous 2021 where, we have our ducks in a row and the people that need to know where our paperwork is and it's all up to date and is going in file folders. Keep your receipts. Very wealthy people write off everything. Be that. Thank you, Susan. I will see you soon. And for all of you out there that have joined in for the Soul of Business today, I hope you got the information you need. You can reach Susan, Diverse Financial Group, Diverse Financial GRP, IG, Facebook, and her website, .ca for us Canadians. And I will see you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care, guys.